Welcome to season 2 of Susie Says. I am so thrilled that you are here because this season we're diving deeper into mental fitness, really learning how to take ownership of our mental narrative through finding tolerance, understanding and acceptance of ourselves and others. I'm Susie Evans and today I've got someone truly special joining me, the beautiful Juliet Lever. Back in 2014, Juliet experienced a spiritual awakening that completely flipped her idea of success and identity. It wasn't all smooth sailing though. There were moments of loneliness, confusion and fear. But that journey inspired her to write her best-selling memoir, Relaunch My Life, and dedicate her work to helping people let go of the past, rediscover themselves and create a life grounded in truth and purpose. Let's do this. Welcome, Juliet.
Thank you, Susie. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, and it's always beautiful to talk to you. And I think being able to share this conversation is even more special. So thank you.
No, thank you. I am just so grateful that our paths had crossed. And for those, just a quick intro, Juliet and I were actually at a same Mother's Day function, lunch, and we were randomly seated next to each other. And I was just so grateful that we got to connect, and I have had the beautiful opportunity of training with Juliet and her partner Paul. And Juliet is also my book writing coach, which I did on grief, and I'm looking at doing my next book.
Yeah,
Juliet,
that was so beautiful. I remember meeting you, and you said, I want to write a book. And then you were in my inbox that very afternoon with, how do I get started? You were so motivated.
yeah, well, I think that was the thing that I'd always thought about it. But the cost, and didn't really know how or what. And then when we had to swap cards and that, I got home and thought, what does this lady do? And I looked up and I went, oh my God, this is no mistake. This is meant to be. So I just had to sign up. Juliet, what would be the simplest way for you to describe what you do and who you help?
I think the best way to describe it is I help people live their true, fulfilling lives in however that looks. And I think 15 years ago, I was living the opposite of that. I was living the society box ticking life where everything looked great on the outside, but inside I was so out of alignment. I was doing things that I thought I should do. I was injecting other people's values into my life and wondering why my life didn't feel right to me. And so I started, really after a series of spiritual awakenings in my mid to late 20s, asking myself really confronting difficult questions, which the more I started to discover who I really was, the more the life that I had built kind of fell away. And I ended up relaunching my life in that space of 12 months. I ended my marriage, I left my corporate job, and I started my life coaching business and taking women to Bali on retreats to help them relaunch their lives. And I think everything that I do has that underpinning of helping people strip away the illusions. And when I say illusions, I mean the programming, the beliefs that were handed down to you, either through your family, through society, all of those layers that aren't even you. And they really get people quite stuck living lives that they just feel aren't right. And so everything, my partner and I, we teach courses to really help people be more empowered, to let go of those patterns and programs and belief systems from the past, and then to be able to consciously create what they want in their future. Because the thing is, when we live a life where we are living as a result of our programming, it's largely unconscious. It's what we were given. It's how we were programmed when we were a child. And we often go through life not questioning those belief systems, even if they're creating a reality in a life that we're not enjoying. People will stay in their comfort zone more than they will want to change. And so I really like to be that beacon of light for people to say, do you know what? There is a different path. And I am a big believer that the short-term hard road gets easier, the short-term easy road gets harder. So I'm a big believer in helping people choose those challenges, choose those paths that maybe feel or look a little bit different, because really I believe, we've got this life, live it and do what is right to you, because no one else has to live every single day in your life with the decisions and choices. And so I would say over the last few years since I wrote my book, and I've helped now over 11 authors self-publish, and I'm helping a lot more now. That's also an extension. There you go. There's my book. That's also an extension of helping people express their truth. And there's a real power in the transformational power in writing and self-expression. I think when you write, you have to be honest with yourself. And so journaling is what really started my journey. And so if you think about that, that's the thread. Journaling is a way of discovering your thoughts. And our NLP coaching and hypnotherapy trainings are a way of starting to shift and change your thoughts, because your thoughts create your reality. And so everything really is around helping people be more empowered, be more in the driver's seat of their life, and really start to realize no one is going to change your life but you. And so I like being that gentle and soft and loving reminder that, hey, who are you waiting to fix or shift or change these things? You're the one that's going to change your life. And so I would say that's who I help. Anyone who really is thinking, my life, this ain't it. That's probably the best way of describing it.
So Juliet, it's a very, very good description. But Juliet, when someone says, I want to change, and they identify that, but I don't know how, what do you actually listen for first?
That's a really good point. I think the first thing is that desire. The first thing is the fact that there is that want. And often through contrast, we know what we want by knowing what we don't want. And so it can be easier if you know you want to change. If you're not sure how, or you're not sure what you want to change, the first thing you can do is start a list of all the things that you're dissatisfied about. And then you can start to take a few steps to write some dot points of what are your choices, what are your options, and what are the things that you can actually influence. The things that I listen to, though, is the language that people are using with themselves, because you are your number one greatest hypnotist, and your suggestions and what you're saying to yourself inside your mind is going to be determining what actions you take, and if you even allow yourself to get into the arena of being able to change, or even surround yourself with people who are going to support that change. What's really interesting, what I also listen to, is inner conflicts. Sometimes people will say they want to change, but they might have a part of them that's afraid of changing, or they might have a part of them that thinks that some bad consequence would happen if they changed, that often isn't even true. So when you ask me what I listen for, every human is so unique. Everyone is so different. I will listen to the patterns and clues in what that person is saying, because people's actions are what is most important. What people say is one thing. If someone says they want to change, but they're not doing anything else, what that says to me is that unconsciously, there's actually some belief systems that they have in place around it not being safe, or the consequences, or something like that. So always I would look at people's actions, and that would be what I would be looking at more so, because that's going to tell you what's actually happening in their programming, what's going on unconsciously, more than what they're saying they want to do. But it's a good start. I mean, knowing that you want to change is great, but you do need to get more specific.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all the sayings, and one thing, I think one of my favorite, I was thinking about this last night, I think one of my favorite quotes, lines, questions from the NLP when I did was, what won't happen if you don't do it? If you do it and don't do it. And that, just flipping that, that pattern of how we think. So that is one that sticks with me a lot.
100%. And I think a lot of the time we are in a bit of a trap of not actually thinking things through. We think we're thinking, but a lot of times we're just repeating thought patterns, but we're not actually deeply thinking. So a great coach, or someone who has studied with us, will know to do deeper inquiry on what that process guides through is what someone believes the consequences are of all the different potential thought processes around a particular issue. And that's fantastic, because as you would have experienced, you end up outthinking your own problem, or thinking, or thought processes, or beliefs. And you realize, that's why I say it's about helping people peel back the illusions, because most times people look at what they first start with as a problem, and then with a great coach and with great tools, you can sort of unpack it and then realize, oh, that wasn't even the problem to begin with. Or I can't believe I ever even said that. Surely that wasn't me that said that. Once you actually start unraveling what is going on in your thinking processes, and actually exploring them with curiosity and open-mindedness. It's not, I think sometimes people can get defensive, don't you think? If people start questioning, people can put up guards and things, but be really curious with yourself. I think if you want to change, and you're listening to this and you're thinking, we're a couple of months into the new year, I want to change, start getting really curious, like, well, what would that look like? Or what would happen if I could change? Or what kinds of changes do I want to make? And if there was just one change per day, that's my favorite thing, is just do one thing per day in the right direction, because that compound effect over the course of the year is going to be over 350 steps in the direction of a different life. Most people, though, don't change. They live the same life year after year, and then 10 years have passed and they've just been repeating patterns and cycles and themes. Whereas if you can make tiny changes, it's those compound things that can start to build over time. And I'm sure you agree.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think for me, what I love being in this space and where I've been guided to be is that it's the simplicity of it. It's the simplicity, but again, that fear. And I was reading somewhere the other day about how people would rather live not happy than to try and change and do happiness in case they lose it. So again, it's just how we have that power. Looking back a little bit, Evolve and Relaunch was born when you and Paul joined forces. What made you decide to build this together? How did that happen?
It's all actually been really organic and natural. It's been one step at a time. So once I'd quit my corporate job and I'd started running my retreats in Bali for several years, and I was doing coaching and I was teaching some spiritual development courses as well, I kept getting women come to my events saying, "Do you teach NLP? I've been hearing about this thing. I want to study NLP. I know it helped you get more confident and let go of limiting beliefs. Do you teach it?" And I'd keep saying, "No, my partner Paul does. Go and study with him." These women wouldn't study with Paul. And I would be thinking, what are they doing? It's been a year. Why haven't they gone and studied NLP? And I brought it up with Paul one day and I said, all these people keep telling me that they want to study NLP and they're not doing it with you. And he said, yeah, they're waiting for you, Juliet. They're waiting for you to teach it. I'm not the right teacher for them. And I had this really uncomfortable feeling of growth, as we call it. I had this feeling of, no, that's Paul's arena, and Paul is such an amazing teacher and I could never be as good as him. And I started minimizing myself and comparing him, as we do when we get those invitations to grow. And then I took a deep breath and I thought, well, I need to practice what I preach. If I'm feeling resistance around this, I need to step into it. And so I spent a long time getting ready. I went to America for my trainer's training, which was a month long, and recorded all of my pre-study and kind of just dove into this world and did my trainer's training. And the week after I got back from America, I had 15 students already ready to go for my first NLP training. And so I kind of had to do it on my own right. I didn't want to just be in Paul's work and doing what he did. I needed to teach on my own. And I remember my first training, it was a lot. It took a lot out of me teaching that training. It was 7 days. It was me just facilitating the whole thing. And it was the first time I taught, but I had this rock solid belief system on I can help these people. And it was the most phenomenal training. And every single one, actually, if I say every, I think it was 13 out of the 15, came up to me on the last day and said, I want to do my Masters of NLP with you. When are you teaching Masters? And I had this, hell no, I've just taught NLP practitioner. That was a lot for me. And Paul turns to me, the amazing triggerer that he is, and he says, well, my master practitioner is at the end of the year. Why don't you co-teach it with me? And I just thought, oh my gosh. And so I couldn't say no to these students. And so I said, look, Paul's got a master practitioner at the end of the year. We're going to combine forces and we're going to teach it together. Would you like to enroll? And all 13 of them enrolled. And so that was our biggest master practitioner. Previously, Paul had always had about 10 people in his master practitioner, and then we had 25, and I was there a couple of months later teaching my first 14-day training, and I was like, oh my gosh, hold on. And so then from there, once we taught that together, we created a banner together for that first training, and it just made sense from that point on to merge and to have, because we needed to create certificates together, and it was just very organic. And it's been the most beautiful journey. I think a lot of people, when they meet Paul and myself, they say, oh, I could never work with my partner. I'd strangle him or I'd go mad or something like that. And I think for us, being in a relationship itself is an amazing personal development course. Having your own business is an amazing personal development course. And then when you add the two together, gosh, the level ups that happen in that. But I think we're really good at knowing each other's strengths and knowing how to work with that. And we have a lot of fun working together, and we have very similar working styles where we will just sit down and sort things out, and we'll get a week's worth of work done in an hour or two, and then we relax, and we're very synergistic in that way. But yeah, it was a very natural progression, and that was back in 2019, so it'll be 7 years now since we've had our business together. And we have such a beautiful community, and I think we know how grateful we are. We are really blessed to attract just amazing people who they're willing to look at themselves. And that's not easy. We live in a reality where people will do anything to avoid looking at the real stuff that's going on. And look, there are a lot of trainers of NLP out there. And I think what sets us apart is we really expect our students to do their inner work and to clean up their projections, their beliefs, their backyard, all of that. And I think that's something that we feel really congruent about, is really saying, if you really want to hold space for others and you want to be a great coach or a leader or a partner, it starts by you going first, and you need to look at yourself and clear whatever is coming up for you. It's not just about having the information of what NLP is, it's also about how much you transform in the process. And that's really what embodying this work means for us. And I think that's why we also really like to teach from that place of authenticity. We'll share stories and metaphors of things that have gone on recently and things that we're learning. We're humans on this path too. And I think sometimes teachers, trainers, and facilitators can do themselves a disservice almost by giving this illusion of perfection that is just unattainable. And so then people will pedestal them and then be set up for disappointment. Whereas Paul and I are very open with our humanness, and we just like to say, when you ask what we do, a lot of the time we say we just like helping share things that have helped us, and we just like helping people kind of not have an easier ride through life, because we're not advertising that that's what it is, but it's helping people have access to tools that can help them understand this journey and themselves and why they've done certain things and how to be more effective. And I think that we try to practice that ourselves as well, always evolving and always learning. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And I think you are together, from being a student in your you're very connected, but you're very different. You might have similar styles in that, but you're very different personalities in that, and that shines through. And I think we all need that. It's sort of, Muzz his favourite quote from Forrest Gump was like peas and carrots. So I'd like to think that I like peas and carrots. Juliet, you touched on your evolved NLP is different from your standard NLP because you get people to stuff themselves first. But for someone new to NLP, what is NLP really about?
It's a really great question. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and I am still in the process of defining it for myself. And I think there's a really interesting belief system about what is NLP and what isn't NLP. And the more you learn about it, the more you realize anything that gets someone a result is NLP. And let me explain. NLP at its core is the notion of modeling and finding what works and how to replicate what works. So for someone to get a successful outcome in anything, there's a certain process that person has gone through to get an outcome. So in the mid-1970s, the co-creators of NLP modeled the most successful therapists of their time, and they looked at, well, what does this therapist do that helps their clients get results? What does this therapist do that helps them get results? They modeled so many different therapists, but what they did was they looked at turning what they did with their clients into a process. So when someone says, oh, NLP is a swish pattern, that's incorrect. A swish pattern is an example of a process that helps a human get a result to change their habits. And so everything really, and this is why even in our NLP training, we've added extra models, because that's NLP. And it's not traditional NLP in terms of what we have to certify people, but anything that gets someone a result is NLP in a sense. So NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And so if I break that down, it's basically discovering your internal and external language and communication processes that help you make sense of the world. And so when you can understand your programs, you can also, through the tools that we teach in NLP, which are examples of modeling, you can start to create change in your internal programming that gets you different results. And why this is important is a lot of people will look at their external results and they'll just keep trying to change their external results. So let's use a really simple example. It's the start of the year. A lot of people have weight loss goals. Someone might want to lose weight. So what do? They change their external results. They go buy new gym gear, they join a gym, they start running, but nothing changes. I just can't lose this weight. In an NLP, from an NLP lens, we would have this attitude of curiosity where we would look at, well, what are your beliefs about your ability to lose weight? I think I'm always going to be a bit overweight. My mum told me I'd never be able to lose weight. Or last time I lost weight, I attracted a real asshole partner. And so I'm actually not wanting to lose weight to protect myself, right? Once we start exploring what's actually in the programming, that's where if we create changes internally, someone's going to feel a lot more intrinsically motivated to exercise and to eat well because their unconscious blueprint is in alignment. And so I think that's what's so exciting. And that's why Paul and I love teaching this, because it's like for the first time, people have these light bulbs about why they have and haven't done certain things. So if you ask me what NLP is, I just think it makes life make so much more sense. It makes life so much easier. But if you ask someone else, they might say like, oh, it's a switch pattern, or it's a way, it's a way to tell if someone's lying to you or not. It's not. One of the things that the co-creators of NLP did was they modeled also what happens inside someone's internal processes when they access information. They noticed that people move their eyes in certain patterns when they're accessing things in their visual cortex, their auditory cortex, etc. And so I think what tends to happen in society is people can kind of generalize things and say, and it's very easy to just label things and say, oh, this is this. Or my favorite one is when people say NLP doesn't work. That's my favorite, because that's not actually possible if you think about it. It's almost like saying Bunnings doesn't work. Bunnings has every tool imaginable that you could have to build a house. But if I tried to go to Bunnings and build a house, I wouldn't be able to, because I don't have the skills. So of course, the person using the tools, the coach that you work with, how skilled they are, how experienced they are, and if they know how to use all the tools in the shed in terms of the NLP toolkit, is going to determine the results and the outcome you get. But I think just from a personal perspective, learning about yourself, understanding why and how you do what you do, it's a game changer, and it's the best investment you can make, because you start to actually understand yourself and have a lot more self-compassion, and stop, a lot of people beat themselves up for not doing certain things. And I think in our courses, I love those moments where people have those realizations of, that's why I haven't done that, because I've had this belief since I was 6 that I'm never going to be successful. Great. We will actually teach you in the course how you can actually shift that unconscious belief and start to rewrite it. And that's life-changing for people when they start realizing something they've thought about themselves or believed about themselves that's been limiting them for sometimes 30, 40, 50, 60 years. In an instant, they can shift that. They'll start filtering their reality differently. And the interesting thing is, we filter our reality through our belief system. So we'll actually delete information out that doesn't align with our beliefs, even if our beliefs are unuseful. So one of my favorite sayings, when I was married, a lot of my girlfriends would say to me, oh, you're lucky to be married. There's no good men out there. And so their belief system is there's no good men, and they would literally delete out all the good men. And luckily, 6 months after I was separated, I met Paul, and I didn't share that belief. And I knew that there was someone in this world for me that when I met them, I would feel at home. And in that moment, that was exactly my experience. So yeah, get really curious. If you are listening to this, and like you asked at the start, Susie, if you do want to change, start getting really curious about the areas in your life where you're not getting the results that you desire. That can be a clue that you've got some unuseful beliefs. And a great place to start, our book, Evolve Your Mind, it's on audiobook or it's on Amazon or Kindle, that actually will walk you through some processes to help you uncover your beliefs in different areas of your life. And it's a great place to start with getting curious and unpack some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Would you say that's probably one of the most impactful belief that you changed, that you believed that you changed the direction of your life?
I didn't believe that. I actually did believe that there were good people. And I think that's why I probably left my marriage, right? I would say
one belief that you changed your life.
I have too many to mention. I have done a lot of work, but definitely, I don't know if I can, it's actually really hard to remember beliefs once you've let them go, because you almost can't believe that you ever thought that way. I don't know if you've had that, but I had very low self-worth, and I had not believing I was good enough, not believing that I was worthy of success. I had to work, actually, after I quit my corporate job and started my own business, the first couple of years, I had to do a lot of work on money beliefs, because it was the first time in my life that I had to actually set my own self-worth, which was really interesting. I'd always had jobs where someone would tell me what salary they would give me. And then when I had to run my own business, that was a really interesting discovery for me that, well, I can't run this for free because this is my career, right? This is my income. So that was definitely interesting. There have been a lot. I do remember, as a joke, when I was practicing, I worked on the belief that chocolate makes you fat. So I actually don't believe that chocolate makes you fat. So that's a great one as well. That helps. Because if you're eating something and you believe it's bad for you, and you're eating something you believe is going to make you fat, that is going to impact your unconscious. And I know this is probably sounding a little bit woo-woo, but I am a big believer that, you know, if you're enjoying something, then it's that's very different. But yeah, there's been a lot of beliefs that I have had to shift for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so is there any, when doing the NLP and you also do hypnotherapy and timeline therapy, are there any, like, can you give us, our listeners, any common threads? Are there any common things that come forward for you?
Absolutely. I would say a big one is not feeling good enough. That's universal, that 90% of our students have to work on. Not feeling good enough, something around not feeling worthy, not good enough. That's a very common one. And even people who often don't think it's a very big thing, they'll work on it and then they'll realize that there was a lot of events maybe in their childhood or early on where one little thing happened and their subconscious learned to generalize that means they're not good enough. And so then it blocks them from taking action in different areas. That's a very common one. Another one that I would say over the last 5 years, especially, like fear of judgment, fear of being seen, fear of failure. We have fear of failure more often than fear of success, but sometimes they're flip sides of that as well. And then what I mentioned at the beginning, the parts conflict, that's very common for people to have a part of them that wants to start a business, or a part of them that wants to do something big, and a part of them that's holding themselves back, or a part of them that sabotages. Anything where someone says they're sabotaging, that to me indicates a bit of a parts conflict, where there's a bigger part of this person that wants to do something, and then there's a small part that's for protection trying to shut them down. I mean, the number one prime directive of your subconscious mind is to keep you safe. And what the safest thing is to do nothing in the short term, right? So when people have big goals or dreams, often there'll be that part that's like, I don't know, you should probably not do that because you could fail. So it's safer for you not to. And it's really just all of the associations that they have to what could go wrong that's stopping them from being able to then take that action. But a great coach will help you get the learnings from that part that's trying to protect you so that you can use that to support you in the action and prevent things from going wrong, and take action anyway with that knowledge. So they're some of the most common ones.
No, thank you. It's so true. I know when I wrote my book with you, and I think I described it as I felt emotionally naked. You felt really raw, that people are going to see who you are. So that's that perfection. It's all from within, isn't it? You touched on there about safe coaching in that, and you and Paul train people who want to help others. So is there anything you could add to that makes someone a safe and effective coach?
Well, I think 100% someone who's walked the walk and talked the talk, and isn't just coaching from theory, but they're coaching from that lived experience of they've gone into their own darkness and their own shadows and their own cave, and they know there's nothing to fear. I don't want a guide that is afraid. I don't want a guide that's saying like, I hope we'll be okay getting through this. That's not a safe coach. A coach who says, you got this, I know you can do this because I've done similar, and I know there's nothing but light. I know there's nothing. You know, the deeper you dig, the more into the darkness you go, all you find is light. And I think the safest way you can guide someone is if you have that safety, that feeling of safety anchored in yourself as a coach. It's almost like tuning forks. A coach and a client, they're going to reverberate. They're going to, the client, it's almost like the client sometimes, and I'm going to say this, it might sound a bit funny, but I say this really respectfully. A client, when you're working with them on belief systems that were formed in their early childhood, will often regress and show up as a child. And a child, think about when a child falls over and hurts themselves, if you as the adult, which is the coach in this situation, is afraid and going, oh my gosh, are you okay? The child starts crying and not feeling okay. Whereas if you as the coach say, I can see that really is, has hurt you. You're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I believe in you. And the coach stays steady. The safest way is for you to have that sense of safety and presence in yourself. And I think that's really one of the most powerful things, is for you to be that steady, calm guide. And then the client feels safe that, okay, this person knows where they're going. It's really interesting. We have a critical faculty, right? The barrier between our conscious and our unconscious mind. And that critical faculty almost decides if it's safe or not to go into the unconscious. And so people who say things like, oh, I can't be hypnotized, they just often have a very strong critical faculty. They have a strong guard that says, oh, I'm not going to just let anyone into my unconscious mind. And that's a good thing, right? Sometimes a client is testing their coach, not consciously, not intentionally, but sometimes they're testing, does my coach believe they can actually help me? So let's say a client, a coach starts working with a client on a technique or a tool, and there's a little bit of resistance. That client's critical faculty lifts up, and the client says things like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember anything. And the coach gives up and says, okay, well, we'll try again next session. Guess what? The client's lost, the coach has lost. Let's say in that same exact scenario, the coach knows that they can help their client get there. The coach is just going to take that feedback. They're going to say, right, just take a deep breath. Let's try again. And the coach's belief will guide that client. And this is one of the things we teach all of our students in our community is if you as the coach believe more in your client being able to change than your client believes in their problem, then your client's going to get a result. And that belief system, again, people might be listening to this thinking, wow, she really talks a lot about belief systems, but your belief is going to create the result with your client or not. And if you can have that certainty, and that's all Paul and I have built over years and years and years, we just have this ultimate certainty in our client's ability to change, in our client's ability to find the solutions and the answers. And I think that's what creates a safe coach. A coach doesn't tell a client what their problem is. A coach is curious and a coach discovers what's real for you. And this, Paul and I always say, we don't know anything. And actually a coach that's a really safe coach is a coach that doesn't know anything, because the moment I know something, I'm creating it, I'm projecting it onto my client. I'm in a process of discovering what is the belief system my client has and getting really curious. And if you can just get really curious, hold your belief system, hold that feeling of safety, make sure your client feels safe in your presence, and also find out what is real for your client and don't make any assumptions. That's the best way to guide a client through a safe coaching experience.
This episode is proudly supported by Workbench for the Mind, a practical mental fitness program created by me, Susie Evans. Workbench for the Mind is for anyone who feels overwhelmed, stuck, or unsure what to do next, but isn't ready for therapy or doesn't know where to start. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about learning simple, evidence-based tools to understand your thoughts, emotions and behaviours and putting them somewhere you can actually reach when life gets hard. Think of it as the bridge between I'm fine and professional support. With guidance, structure and care along the way, you can learn more or join a supported intake at susieevans.com. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for me, my mantra, I suppose, this last 6 months has been, that you're not broken. You don't need fixing. You need to understand
100%.
how that brain and body connection works. And I often get, I'm not a qualified psychologist. And my answer is, well, I don't claim to be. And
No.
but from my lived experience, this has helped me take ownership of my own mental narrative and take responsibility for my own mental fitness. And these are the things that have worked for me. So I'm just guiding people to take that ownership, because I feel that we're in a society like there's a love-hate with, technology, which is allowing us to do what we're doing now. I actually say in my training, I've got my auntie's old dictionary here, and I force myself to look up every now and then, because we've become, just Google it, just look it up. And so as people in our community, I feel we've lost our confidence. So we're wanting people to do it for us instead of taking that ownership and really getting to know ourselves, and by, exactly as you said earlier on, those one small increments each day, not by, and I've done this myself, I'm going to lose X amount of kilos, in the next 6 weeks till Christmas, and now it's next week and I'm working out how to lose those kilos in 5 days, 7 days. And what you touched on, people buy the diet book and how to get fit, like they buy the clothing and then they go, well, I read the book, why haven't I lost weight? And it's because you've actually got to do it. So I love all that. And I love that you talked about, with coaches and any professional kind of guidance, it's about boundaries and responsibility as well. It's not telling them or what to do. It's giving them the safety and the confidence to look inside themselves and trust themselves. So on that,
Absolutely. And yeah.
what would be the biggest myth about confidence in your thoughts?
Well, that you have to do something in order to have it. Confidence is an emotional state. And one of the tools that you learn in the NLP training and the hypnotherapy training is how to access powerful positive emotions in the present moment. And so we do a process of anchoring where we actually guide the whole group and we teach the group how to access times in their past when they felt confidence. Now, if I get you to access, and we might guide a little process at the end of this interview, if I guide a little process of you accessing confidence in the past, when are you accessing that feeling of confidence? Well, the only time is now. So you're accessing it in the now, which means right now you feel confident, even if you are reliving a moment from the past. That emotional blueprint that's going through your body is fueling you with the same chemicals as if something happened and it made you feel confident in the present moment. And so we're really good at going back to past negative events and replaying them and making ourselves feel shit. One of the things we love to tell people is, well, why not go back to the powerful, positive moments in your life and use them like a muscle to boost your energy, to boost your self-esteem, and to boost your confidence. So I think one of the biggest myths is you have to wait for something to happen for you to feel it. You can feel it and you can generate it. I mean, you are a chemical powerhouse. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is you have this incredible mind body system at your beck and call, but you have not been given the instruction manual. And so getting these tools and tips into how to actually tap into that, it just makes your whole system operate so much smoother. I mean, think about oil and petrol in a car, confidence, clarity, all of these things that we've been talking about today, they're going to help your vehicle, your body, mind run so much smoother. There's something known as operating from a psychology and a physiology of excellence, right? Yeah. The psychology is having your mind focused on what you want. The physiology is having your body primed for the emotions that you're wanting to feel more on a regular basis. And unfortunately, we do get addicted to the way that we feel. And so a lot of people are running on an addiction to stress and adrenaline and cortisol and reacting to things. And that's what feels like home in the nervous system. And then you'll find something funny. A really common thing that people have told us when they study with us is after the course, like, oh, I feel so good. I feel so relaxed. This feels weird. It's not normal to feel good for a lot of people. And then they start running patterns of something must be wrong. And that's a really interesting phenomenon that in order to feel normal, people have to feel like, stressed out or wired or that sort of thing. But that's not our natural operating system. Like one of my favorite things to say is you don't have to go on a retreat. You don't have to go on a holiday. You can literally make your day-to-day life feel like a retreat and a holiday if you learn these things on how to prime your body and your nervous system. But I want to touch back on what you mentioned earlier as well about that often people say, but you're not a psychologist. And I really want to acknowledge and respect the profession and the differences, because one of the things, like you said, is you don't say that, you don't advertise that you're a psychologist. You never said that you were. And I think this is really interesting because we have a lot of students, we have a lot of clients that come to us and they have had wonderful experiences with psychologists, and yet they still know that there's something more that they need to discover and find and access. And so I think what's really powerful about the coaching framework is NLP was really one of the first forms of therapy that was outcome focused. It wasn't focused on the problem. It's focused on, well, what is it that you desire? What is it that you're moving towards? What do you want to create? And it's about helping people move towards those outcomes. But in order to move forward towards your goals, sometimes the foundation that you have isn't conducive to the goals that you're wanting to achieve. So of course, we look at how to help people clear their associations to the past so that they can move forward. And with respect to the profession, I think there's a time and a place for every modality. And this is not saying do one or the other. This is saying yes and add, do psychology, do counseling, do whatever it is, follow your path. I think everyone's healing journey is really unique to them. And some people will not even hear about something called NLP or hypnotherapy because they might go and see a psychologist and that is exactly the puzzle piece they needed. But for other people, they've gone to half a dozen psychologists and they're thinking, okay, this isn't helping. I need to try something different. And that's where sometimes the coaching steps in. And I think being really clear on coaching is about helping people achieve outcomes and helping them clear anything that's stopping them from getting there. And it's not about talking about problems for months on end. And we have had a lot of students that will say, oh my gosh, I've been working on this one particular problem for 3 years with my psychologist, and in one NLP session today, I've been able to actually let it go. And that's the difference. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying that there's a time and a place, and every human is unique. And so if you're listening to this and you love your psychologist, great. That's perfect for you. But please appreciate that that's not the experience for everyone. And there is this whole big world, and people have different models of the world where they filter for different things. And for some people, their path is taking them down a different track. And that we also want to have respect for everyone's experience and everyone's model of the world, and not create this sort of perception that happens in the community of, oh, well, this person isn't a psychologist, they haven't studied at uni for 10 years. What's a benefit to that is sometimes that person then is not going to be looking through the lens and the filter of labels and diagnosis. That person's going to be looking at the lens and the filter of, who's this human in front of me, and how can I serve them, and how can I help them discover things about themselves with the skills that I'm looking through. Because again, what you filter for, you find. And if you're filtering to help someone be more effective in their life moving forward, then that's a beautiful perspective to have. But I just think, having that ability of realizing, well, there's all modalities are useful is just a really important point. And we never, are putting any down. We're saying yes, and they're all useful. Don't you think?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have a psychologist and have done for nearly 8 years since Muz passed, and not as often now, which is great, but sometimes just a nice check-in. And what I do is complemented that. And I think what I do is, like, my workbench for the mind is a stepping stone. So It's that bridge between zero to psychologist. So it's, instead of, especially in rural areas when people can wait nearly 3 months to get that, professional help. And in 3 months, as you know, as I was saying before, with Google and that, we can do a lot of self-spiraling in that time. So if people just understand these basic tools, it can guide them to look after their mental fitness more effectively while they're waiting for that appointment, or realise that that's all they needed was that check-in and that structure and that
that's
aligning.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And you're so right. Sometimes as well, people won't go to that step of finding a psychologist or a counselor or a coach or anything until it's really bad. So for you to have created that stepping stone, that's just empowering people to equip themselves with tools so that then maybe it doesn't even get to that point. I love that. It's cool.
Yeah, and that's the feedback I get. I get either, this is a bit confronting, or it was full on, but thank you, I now realise I'm okay. Or I get, thank you, that's confronting, I think I do need to speak to someone. So either way, it's
Good.
guiding them in the direction they need to be in. And so, it's awesome.
That's brilliant.
Before we get a wrap up, I want to ask you, changing the subject a bit, but not really. You had the most amazing trip to Egypt, which I was just fascinated by. I always wanted to go. My husband, Mix, wanted to go because his grandfather was in the 9th Light Horse Brigade and went through there and wanted to see it. So I was just watching your trip. Can you give us a brief description on that, or some key takeaways of how that changed your life and perhaps why you were there? What drew you there?
I think that's a really good, I would love to, yes. I'm always very intentional when I do anything, and one of my highest values is spiritual growth. And so anytime I go into something, it's with the intention of having transformation. And it was actually very cheeky how it all came about. I'd had it on my vision board all last year, and it was Paul's 40th at the end of the year, and we'd intentionally changed our structure of our courses around so that we could have some time off for his 40th, and we were going to go overseas. And got closer to his 40th, and we weren't organising anything, and I asked him, what do you want to do? Do you want to go overseas? And he said, not really. And then this particular facilitator that I had been following, I think, for like 10 years on socials, and every time I'd wanted to do her Egypt trip, we had our master practitioner at the end of the year, and the dates would clash. This particular year, it shifted. And so I said to Paul, well, if you don't want to go overseas, can I go to Egypt for a month? And he said, sure, I don't want to go for it. So it was almost like I manifested all of that change because I have a higher value on travel than Paul does. Paul loves being at home with Max and going to the gym, but I love travel and spiritual experiences, etc. So this was a beautiful journey, and it was about 20 women from all around Australia. The facilitator's husband and son and one other man were there, but the rest, it was all women. And it was a pilgrimage really from the south in Aswan, which is the way that the Nile River moves at Aswan is phenomenal. And one of our guides actually told us that it is the beginning point for all water on earth. And when you watch the way the water ripples, it's almost like if you've ever watched a top-loading washing machine, it was almost like, but it was going backwards and forwards in on itself. And I have never seen water move like that. And so even though I have a very strong skeptical side, it was very magical start. And so we journeyed up from Aswan. We had what's called a Daha Beha, which is like a wooden houseboat, which is a luxurious thing that was just for us. And so we journeyed up the Nile, and we would stop every day at a different temple. And what was beautiful about this particular facilitator is she does dance activation. So in the mornings, we were doing embodiment practices and movement that were aligned to the particular goddess of the temple that we were going to be visiting. So it was a different journey in terms of, yes, there was a lot around the history of Egypt, but I tend to take all of that with a grain of salt because no one really knows, and a lot of people are just making a lot of stuff up. So I for me, my intention was just what happens to my body and my nervous system when I enter this temple. And so that was where I had some very deep meditations. We journeyed then all the way up to where did we go? I can't even remember the name of the city. I did a very long podcast on it, but we ended up then flying into where the pyramids are, to Giza. We flew from Luxor to Giza, that is, and then we drove into Giza at night and saw the pyramids. And then the next day we sat at the base of the Sphinx at sunrise on the 11th of the 11th, and I've never had such a profound meditation. I was sitting at the base of the Sphinx and I literally felt like I was a battery just getting charged as the sun rose. And then I looked up behind me and the Sphinx's eyes looked like they were opening as the sunlight was opening on its eyes. And then that night on the 11th of the 11th, we got to enter the king's chamber, and our guide had basically bribed the guards so that we would have 2 hours in the king's chamber on our own, and we turned off the lights and the humidifiers, so we got to do this meditation in there in complete darkness and silence. And that was some very extreme astral travel meditations, and it was really beautiful and very healing as well. And it's a very special place. We then had a 10-hour bus drive into the desert in Siwa, and we swam in Cleopatra's pool, and it was an amazing journey. It was about 3 weeks all up. And I love that I was with a group. I think going with a group was really good. I wouldn't have wanted to necessarily go on my own, but I would feel safe now that I've been with the group. I would feel safe now going back with Paul because I kind of know what's involved. There's a lot of tourist police because tourism is their biggest source of revenue. They're very protective of tourists. And so in every town, there's tourist police that almost know every group that's there, and you go anywhere. And if you talk to a local, the tourist police will come up and ask you if you're okay. So it's very safe in that respect. But we did have some police escorts and things at times because we were a bus full of 20 Western women in the middle of nowhere. So it was fantastic. And I would just say anyone who's thinking about going, make sure you do your research and choose the right guide. And for all means, go. It's really special. And if you could find someone that gets you like into the King's Chamber on your own, it's much better. Because when we drove away from the Sphinx and the pyramids, there was like thousands of people lined up out the front, and we just kind of I think she paid a bit extra, but it was worth it. So it was beautiful.
Thank you so much. Juliet, I'm wondering if there's a daily practice you come back to, or something, short meditation that you can give us, an example.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now. People are driving. Please don't do this while you're driving, but
I'll keep it light. Well, I'm 89 days into a 100-day gong. So I did a spiritual course earlier this year where the facilitator suggested sticking to something for 100 days, whether it's like Tai Chi or meditation. And so every morning I do tarot read and heart breathing. So heart breathing is really just focusing on your heart. And so I can guide through that. Maybe as well, because we talked a bit about confidence and it is the start of the year, I'll do a little bit of suggestion around confidence. So if you're driving, maybe put this on pause and listen when it's safe. And if you're not driving, just get yourself nice and comfortable, take a few deep breaths. And if you want to close your eyes, just allow yourself to expand your exhales so that you can relax your body as you breathe. Let go of any tension in your shoulders, in your jaw, in your throat, anywhere in your body. Just inhaling in and breathing out, scanning your body, letting go. And as you breathe now and listen to my voice, I want you to become aware of the energy in your heart space. Imagine as you breathe in, you're breathing even more love into your heart. And as you exhale, send that love out of your heart, out into the world, lowering your awareness, your attention down into your heart, knowing that your heart has an intelligence, an infinite wisdom, and it can see more about the situations that you're going to be going into today. It can help you to access a broader perspective, compassion for yourself and others. And yet your heart is wise. It can also help you to know where you need to love yourself more by setting loving boundaries. And as you breathe now, breathing in and out through your heart, imagine that the air is actually flowing in and out of your heart space. And every breath helps your heart find equilibrium, find balance, find peace. Because whatever your day is going to have in store for you, just by taking this time to connect to your heart, you're strengthening yourself, you're shifting your perspective, and you're allowing yourself to go into more times and places in your future with an open heart, which is going to support you to have positive outcomes for your day. And the more you relax and center yourself and just listen to these words, the more you can feel yourself opening up to all of the possibilities that this day is going to offer you. And the more open you are to possibilities, that means you can be confident in trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, and trusting your ability to make decisions that are right for you, because you are in the driver's seat of your life. And you can focus on what you want to create in your future. And the more you focus on what matters to you, the more your life is going to unfold in alignment. And so in a moment, we're going to come back. But before we do, just take another deep breath into your heart and put a smile on your beautiful face, having a moment's gratitude for this life that you get to experience as you. Out of all the people in the world you could be, you are you. And you are this unique expression. And you get to experience whatever it is that you desire today. And so if there were one thing that would be important for you to do today to support your future goals and dreams, I want you just to take a moment to tune into your heart and become aware of what would be that one step that is going to take you in the direction towards the life of alignment for you. Notice what it is. It may be something very simple, but promise yourself now in this moment that you will do this one thing today. And just like we can build our confidence, the more you keep these tiny commitments and promises to yourself, the more your self-esteem will grow. And imagine every day for the next week, keeping a tiny promise to yourself, listening to this recording, grounding yourself, connecting to your heart, and knowing that it only takes a couple of minutes, but it can completely shift your entire day. Slowly counting back now from 3, starting to wriggle your fingers and toes, 2, putting a bigger smile on your face, and 1, coming back into the room, ready to have the most beautiful day. Thanks, sorry, I just kind of started going along with that.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I'm a big believer, I listen to I've got meditations on Insight Timer, and I'm a big believer that a lot of my meditations are only 5 minutes, because it doesn't have to be this. I hear people meditating for an hour, and I think it's quality, not always quantity. And if you have that intention and you can drop in quite quickly, it can be really powerful to just.
Fantastic. Juliet, what trainings have you guys got coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have writing retreats. I have a day retreat and a weekend retreat happening this year. So you can check out my website at julietlever.com for details about that. Our next NLP training starts in April. Our hypnotherapy training is in the last weekend of May, first weekend of June. And we have our Masters of NLP, our Advanced Hypno, and we also have some other programs that we are going to be launching this year as well. Some things around money and mindset. So basically check out evolveandrelaunch.com.au or send us an email and let us know if you want to have a chat and find out about any of our programs.
Fantastic. Thank you. We'll make sure that the links are in below so that people can go straight to them. I could sit and talk to you for hours, as you know, but I'd like to thank you so much for joining me on Susie Says. I've just really loved talking with you, and thank you for your time, and I'm sure my listeners have too. And yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was beautiful to speak to you as always, and can't wait to see your next book. And congratulations on all of the success with your first book. It's really made an incredible ripple in the world, and I love seeing you shine and do your thing. So well done for bearing your soul. I was going to add one thing when you said that, actually. It's so interesting, isn't it, that you can be speaking like you and I are talking right now, and yet for some reason, when you put it into a book, it feels more vulnerable. Isn't that interesting? Because I can see you right now, I can hear you right now, but for some reason, those typed words, it's so intimate. It's interesting, isn't it?
It is, and I also find that in other scenarios too. I think, and it's how can I say? It's like when you say it out loud and when you put it out there, it's real. So I think why we have all this inside us, we feel like we're juggling the balls or we're managing it, and no one really sees us. It's that picture perfect on the outside. Yet it's that vulnerability, isn't it? It's when we actually write it down, physically get it out of our head, it becomes real. That's it's amazing, the brain and body connection. It just totally fascinates me. Absolutely. Yeah. So nice.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful to speak to you.
Thanks, Juliet.